Okay, so because the Army beat the Navy in, I presume, a football game, as ball sports are just not really my forte, we got Monday off. Today being Monday, seemed like a good day to figure out why. This fuel pump went bad. And this is not a fuel pump for an engine, this is out of a HEMTT fueler, and this is the primary mover for moving fuel out of the main tank to fuel vehicles. There's really only three ways that I can think of that this thing went south. Number one, this hydraulic motor is just out of spec. The tolerance has got too sloppy on it and it just won't pump this very fast. Two, the spline sheared out, which is pretty much not going to happen. Or three, this pump actually broke, probably from cavitation. And there's some broken fins that I'm going to have to track down somewhere in the fuel lines. So we'll take it apart and see what went south. Okay, so it took all the 15/16 bolts out of this for this is going to be the intake side, that'll be the output. And switch to inch here. What are these? I can't even. It's like 3.2 inches. What metric? 83. OD. 70 millimeters ID. It's like 2.7 inches ID. Almost 2.8. Okay, so we get the inlet and outlet hoses. Of course, that doesn't let you see anything. So not a lot to see there. This is centrifugal force. This is a centrifugal pump. So centrifugal force is going to send fluid, in this case fuel, out that side after it's been sucked in by their impeller on that side. Now, the other real reason I'm taking this thing apart is because if a bunch of fins broke off or something like that, those fins went somewhere, and if they're in the fuel system somewhere, that means we're going to have to go track them down, or we're going to break a bunch more stuff. Okay, next step here is going to be trying to get the hydraulic motor off. If she spins, there we go. Come on. Alright, so I see what's so that impeller, yeah, that impeller is held in place. Actually, we might be able to get this housing out that way, but it doesn't mean I could probably still take it apart from this end. Okay, so in a different move, we just took the housing bolts out and hopefully use the whole impeller. Yep, here we go. Let's set the housing aside, which is super light now. And we take a look at the impeller. So how this works is fluid gets sucked up in here, and then because of centrifugal force, gets evacuated out these veins right here. And not bad. The pump doesn't look, at least on this side, this doesn't look bad. So if this thing, I actually wasn't the one to diagnose this. The civilian said, replace the pump. So what those guys say goes. So we done did it, but I don't see anything wrong with that pump. Okay, what I do feel wrong is this. That feels fine, but this feels like it's slipping. So we'll see if we can get that to come off. It may or may not. And I had to take this stupid thing over to the vise to get all the bolts to free up. They were seriously in there. Although to be fair, turns out I don't have a 3/4 inch, 1/2 inch drive socket down there. So all I've got is 3/8, and my little 3/8 wrench didn't really like that. Now this is going to be geared. There'll be one gear here, one gear here, assuming it lets go. Yeah, there we go, there we go. Let's put the housing aside. So there's one shaft, and I'm gonna go with this one. The gear will come off. Whoa. You telling me that's the keyway for this? That little thing? Wow, that's a tiny keyway. Hold on, let me get in on that. Okay, so what I was talking about is it's not cogged, it's just a keyway. And how small is that key? Oh, it's not even, it's a round key. Whoop! Come back here. It's not even a square key, it's just round. That's a mil. Wait, switch to inch. 0.12 inches is what that looks like. That's, I figured there'd at least be a square key in this. And it doesn't really seem to, I mean, it can walk all over the place too. It's, the keyway and the gear is round, so they didn't broach it. I've never seen one like that. There's something you don't see very often anymore, made in the USA. This is a Turrington, get in frame. Turrington needle bearing. I'm gonna guess there's probably one in here too, but getting the shaft out is gonna be a problem. So I went ahead and mounted this up in the vise. It's pretty painful, obviously, and I figured it out earlier, but I don't know if you've seen it. We have a serious binding issue between the pump impeller and the input shaft. So whatever went south is the connection between these two. So I said it was almost possible for those splines to go bad. If it's keyed, then we probably broke the key. If it's spline, then I'm going to be really surprised. So after basically trying to not destroy the veins down here, I'm going to do something I have never done before. I'm going to use the puller on the input shaft of the motor and see if we can get it to separate. Right now it flat out does not want to give. Alright, so after a lot of forceful prying, it's came apart and it sounds super gritty. Ooh, grimy. Oh yeah. Well, pieces of something just fell apart. Okay, well that's pretty obvious what went wrong now. So if you look, there's this is the bearing, inner bearing race, and that's all destroyed. There's the keeper, just for sealing out grease or these from getting in here. And we get all the ball bearings, and if we look right here, you can see that the ball bearing right here, this, ooh, how many balls can we count? Hold on. Okay, so I can count a total of, let's see, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11. 11 ball bearings is what we have. This cage definitely had more than 11 in it. So we have some missing ball bearings somewhere. Not sure where, but you can see these. Focus. There we go. So you can see where these got bound up and then they just ground down to nothing. Now this was definitely broke. You could hear it was broken binding. We broke it more. There's a big snap ring right here that because you can't get the impeller off, you can't get that spline out to get to this. So I think we probably ripped part of that apart with the puller. But nonetheless, that's why the pump failed. This was, I don't know, I mean, not more than 10 or 15 bucks at most went into that bearing, and this was a $3,300 pump coming with, and that's with the hydraulic motor. And because the Army's so modular, we can't buy just this. So yeah, it's a real waste, but hey, it's how the government works sometimes. But looking on the back side of this, you can see where it definitely made contact. That's not from balancing. Okay, so clearly I'm missing something here. I was able to get I thought this was going to be a press fit with a keyway. It's not, it's threaded. This is one solid shaft. There's nothing to move, so this isn't a clutch system. I'm not sure why there's a preload spring here. There is. So if you clearly know more about this than I do, chime in and let me know what you think has gone wrong here. So I just noticed this upon reassembly, but this key definitely got mangled up. That's why this was so much shorter, but then that brings the question is where'd the rest of it go? So now we've getting the motor reassembled. Now all that bad bearing is in there. This thing's spinning beautifully. In all likelihood, if we didn't have the replacement pump for this and we had to get this truck back in the fight, I could probably just reassemble everything like I'm going to, put it back in, and it'd work just fine for a while. Okay, so best guess as to what happened here. After some dinner and some thought, what I'm thinking happened is that the running pressure of the hydraulic system in a fueler should be pretty low because the pump sits underneath the tanker, so you're basically feeding up gravity feed. So it shouldn't take a lot of pressure to move that motor and, as a consequence, move the fuel. When the bearing sheared apart and got jammed in there, the motor wedged and stopped, or that shaft wedged and stopped the hydraulic motor, and the force required to turn that hydraulic motor over was less than the force required to open up the pressure relief valve. So the PTO kept pushing fluid kept moving, but just couldn't turn the motor over. And yeah, ground everything to a stop.